office for our first installment of our Movers and Shakers segment. Mayor, thank you for hosting us and for taking the time to answer a few questions this week.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, I'm going to start with a couple softballs for you. During your tenure as mayor, we've seen the revitalization of the downtown, incredible development of the Statesville Regional Airport, expansion of the water treatment plant's capacity. Plus, we've seen the interbasin transfer, which has secured the future of water for Statesville for a long time. What would you say is your crowning achievement, or the thing that the city could be most proudest of during the time you've been mayor since 2005?
Well, I don't think they're my achievements by any stretch of the imagination, but during my tenure, we've certainly accomplished a lot of things. And I tend to favor the things that are less visible. Everybody can see the streetscape and have their own opinion about that. Very few people see the airport. Very few people see the expansion of the wastewater treatment facilities. So I would tend to err on the side of the less visible. But certainly the expansion of the wastewater treatment capacity, we can already see the results of that. We upsized the line that the state ran to the new rest area, and we've already had the distillery, Southern Distilling, to come on board and be in the city of Statesville to take sewer services. And now the Mannheim Auto Auction has petitioned for annexation. That's going to be an additional $16 million worth of tax base. Very low services. So things like that are, astronomically important to the citizens of the city of Statesville. We tend to get bogged down in the things that we can see and touch and kind of feel, but those things are the gifts that keep on giving. So I would say that among those that you mentioned, I would certainly say the airport is extremely important, but the wastewater treatment facility will be something that will serve us well way into the future. Okay,
thank you. And what would you say has been the biggest challenge during that time?
I often say that if everybody who had a concern about something in the city could express that, and I had time to respond to them on a one-on-one basis, we could work through a lot of the things that seem to give people concern and angst. So I guess the biggest challenge in any role that you have in society, public role, whether it's an elected position or the head of a nonprofit organization or something like that, is to make sure that the constituents understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to accomplish it. And I think that's an obstacle that God puts in our path. It makes it virtually impossible for everybody to have as much knowledge as they would like. And sometimes you have to say that maybe the citizens have to pay better attention and they'll understand better. But if I had something that nags me that is sort of irreconcilable, it's that some people claim a lack of information, a lack of transparency, a lack of knowledge, and we try to provide source after source after source where you can get that information. Of course, your online newspaper is one of those sources, and we love to be as open as we can, but some people still have a different challenge that they want to know about, and I feel that I have and other elected officials have the capacity to explain those things if given the opportunity, and so that's kind of a thorn in the side day after day.
Okay. Let's rewind for a minute and talk about the last campaign. It was tough. There were, it seemed to get personal, not just among the candidates, but longtime friends, people and associates kind of were forced to choose sides between you and Mr. Johnson. And I think some of those friendships and relationships will never be the same. Has it been difficult for you and I guess the council to move forward and get back to the business of doing the city's work?
Well, the difficulty is not the campaign. I've often said if the only thing that concerned the citizens was the relationship that Mike Johnson and I have, that's fine. We're fine. He chose to challenge for the office, and that's okay. The bigger challenge, of course, is the obvious dead split in the council as it exists today. And as everybody brings to my attention, I've probably been involved in breaking more ties in the first 4, 5, or 6 months of this than the whole 12 years previous, and that's okay. And it's my intention to try to let the citizens know why I vote the way I do. In the past, people said, oh, just rap the gavel and say yay or nay. But I think it's important for the citizens to understand how I feel and why I'm making the decisions that I'm making and what went into that decision-making process. I didn't realize how deep the differences might be in the early going. And so I kind of went into the early meetings prepared on a couple topics to think that there'd be something to break a tie about. But as we've gotten deeper into it, it seems as if there are more chances to break the tie than not. And I jokingly say, when you have to break a tie on a motion to adjourn a meeting, you might need to be getting into things a little bit more deeply. So that's where we are now, but we'll get over that. And there's some signs that, there's some big overriding issues where people have different philosophical differences. But I sense that everybody on the council is working for what they believe to be the best interest of the citizens of Statesville. So I'm confident that we'll get there one day.
Okay. So certainly the mayor's position with the increased number of tie-breaking votes seems to be a little more powerful now than it has been in the past, just because a few times you've been kind of the ultimate decision maker on some pretty big votes. And certainly you spend a lot of time in your official capacity as a mayor. I'm sure that amount of time you spend a week has increased as the years have gone by and the issues have been more difficult. My next question is, can you envision a time when the mayor's position would be a full-time position with full-time pay and benefits?
Well, my answer to that is that either the model that was set up for service in municipal government in North Carolina is wrong or outdated, or we don't address it correctly, because the pay, nobody, as you said, nobody would give up their job for the pay that you get as mayor of Statesville or council member of Statesville. But I'm not the only one. There are several people that spend many hours, both locally and throughout the state, representing the interests of the city of Statesville. So, perhaps it should be that way. I guess you understand going in, if you pay attention and ask, that you're going to spend a lot of hours for not very much pay. So while it's not a volunteer position, it's certainly, you don't do it for the money. And yeah, I could see that. And I don't know, a lot of times I think it either ought to be totally volunteer or full-time, because you're kind of stuck in the middle. And so the money, the pay becomes inconsequential because you've got to do the work. And but I don't think it would be unfair to reward the council members with more compensation or some benefit. It's a heresy to suggest that at this time, but there are city councils in North Carolina that have retirement plans for their elected officials and health insurance and things like that. I'm not promoting that. I wouldn't propose that under any scenario. But there are other people that have said, the way it was set up years ago to be just sort of a gentleman or gentlewoman kind of gather together every couple of weeks and see what's important is certainly not the way it works. And I've often thought if all that really needed to be done was to make a decision on certain topics, then we could just have a mailbox at the square and say, these are the 3 topics of the week. Tell us how you want to vote, and we wouldn't have to spend untold hours dealing with those things. But I guess for the foreseeable future, the model will be the same as it is. It will take a lot of work to get the job done. I used to say when we had young children, I said, you need to be a parent to appreciate your own parents, because even the worst parent in the world spends a lot of time trying to do a good job. And so that's sort of the same thing in public service. If you ranked, if the community said, well, and ranked all the elected officials in the county and said this person works the hardest and this person works the least hard, then there'd still be a lot of effort being put in by all of those people.
Okay. Cannot let the opportunity pass to ask you about the Vance Hotel. Certainly been a lightning rod for what seems like a long time. the council and yourself now are charged with figuring out what to do with it. Regardless of which way you go, you're going to have people who are happy and people who are unhappy. What do you think the end game is, and when can we expect a decision?
Well, right now we have a development agreement with Richard Angino, Third Wave Housing, that expires June 30th. So I've been saying for a couple of months, it appears we need to make a decision on or before June the 30th. We're going to be asked at our May 7th meeting to approve a modest amount of money so that the Institute of Government or another company can examine the numbers and present the best proposal that gives the city the best opportunity to return its loan to the city coffers. Something needs to happen there, and again, as I've mentioned before, it's not just the hotel. It's a two-phase approach to the parking deck, which is independent of the hotel, so there may be some confusion in the community. But I see it as three projects. I see it, one project is the improving of the parking deck that we have already because it's got some safety issues, and we could obtain a few additional parking places by taking the shell building off the back and scraping underneath and having new ramps and all that. So we need to do that. That's phase one. Phase two maybe is more optional. That's the extension of the parking deck over the Meeting Street parking lot to add parking. And then third, of course, is the hotel. I understand people's concerns. They see it as giving money to a private developer. They see it as a downtown project. They see it as a big white elephant and that there are other ways that the city could spend its money. I understand all of those things. It's been done before. It's been done by this man before. It's been done all over the state where private developers have to come in, and maybe it's no different than the public and private sector supporting Panther Stadium, for example. Is Jerry Richardson getting a little bit richer because the city put money into it? I guess so, but without the city's involvement, would they have been able to do it, and would we even have a professional football team? So that's part of it. The other thing is, I don't see the Vance Hotel as a downtown project. Some people said, you know, you spend a lot of money downtown, we're tired of you spending money downtown, you need to spend money other places. Well, we are spending money other places. The city is very solvent. The city has the capability to do a number of projects at any given time. And I hope we will continue to do that. So I see that as a community project. I see it as some benefit to the downtown. But quite honestly, Mike, I used to get more comments about the state of the Vance Hotel before we had the streetscape than now. People aren't quite as concerned, but we know it's deteriorating. And we know if we just knock it down, it won't be that much less expensive than it will be to participate in its renovation. So we'll see. I anticipate that there'll be serious discussion every step of the way and on every penny that needs to be spent from here on out. So we'll just see how it goes.
All right, fair enough. Last question, Mayor. Save the best for last. You think this is going to be your final term, or can you see yourself going through another campaign?
Oh, I don't know. It's so early into this term that I honestly have given no thought to that whatsoever. I mean, I enjoy serving. I enjoy doing all of the things that are required of the mayor. It does take time away from my main line of work, being an attorney. And it takes time away from my family, but my children are grown now, and gives me more time to do that. So I really don't know. I don't mean to put the question off, but I think we're probably 3 years away from answering that question. But I certainly learned a lot about campaigning and about the community, and I'm energized to do the best job I can this term.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you joining us for our first installment of Movers and Shakers. Thanks, Brian. Back to you.